crazy is often just being right first. And for those of us who want to go big and create unreasonable moves in our lives, then we are going to have to make decisions and sit in the discomfort of those decisions not making sense to other people.
Hey, I'm Hannah, your host of Too Much, Not Enough. After a life-threatening burnout in 2021, I released the brittle version of success that was slowly killing me and built a life that feels as good as it looks. This podcast is for ambitious, soul-led humans ready to stop shrinking and start living big, bold, fully aligned lives. So if you've ever felt like too much and not enough, join me and my guests as we take an unfiltered deep dive into why being the real you was never the problem, and how to create a life your nervous system actually likes. Let's get into it.
Hi, baby. Welcome back to Too Much, Not Enough. I'm your host, Hannah, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about not making sense. Because what if your life doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you? If that makes you feel a little squirmy inside, I totally get it. That's not a concept that I understood until recently. In fact, I spent majority of my adult life so far living a life that made sense to everyone out there and made little sense to the truth inside of me. So today's episode is for the brave hearts who are taking the road less traveled and perhaps sometimes feeling the heat that comes with taking the road less traveled. So whether you're pivoting careers, ending a relationship, launching something wild, or simply choosing joy when everyone around you is choosing to be busy, this is your permission slip to trust your inner knowing, even when it makes zero sense to the outside world. In fact, I think that's the best fucking time to trust your inner knowing, when it makes no sense to anyone but you. There was a time just a few years ago where I was building a version of success that I had seen templated by people out there, but made very little sense to my system. I was hustling, I was tired, I was controlling, I was forcing, I was unhappy, and while my bank account felt wealthy, I did not feel wealthy anywhere else in my life. And I thought, wait a second, I don't think life is supposed to feel this miserable. And therefore, what if I started making different decisions? Decisions that I didn't necessarily see as making sense to the typical trajectory and instead made sense for me, felt good in my body. And so I started small. I started by taking back some of my time. Even though I was a solopreneur building a business, I said, you know what? I actually don't want to fucking hustle all the time. And I don't want to start my days at 8 a.m. and end them at 7 p.m. and be available for whoever, whenever. I like to have long, slow mornings, so I'm going to start my days later. And I also don't want to be in meetings after 4, so I'm going to stop taking meetings past 4 p.m. And now to me, that is just something that makes perfect sense. But back then, I felt like I was breaking the rules, like I was some weirdo who was making these decisions. And then as I kind of gained some courage, I started making more decisions that didn't make sense. And the less sense that I made to people out there, the more sense I made to myself. And more than anything, I was staying true to myself when others were questioning my path. When my parents, who are beautifully supportive, did not quite understand what I was getting myself into as I built Soma Soma. And quite frankly, I didn't even fully know. They would ask questions and I would just say, I know what I'm doing. I started to feel less like I needed to explain every step for validation and instead just said, trust me. And some people said, okay. And others, not so much. And that's okay. But the ones who I said, trust me, and they went, okay, I do, have been here to see that unfold. When my partner questioned how I was showing up online, saying it wasn't very professional, it wasn't very curated, that I shouldn't be recording videos in my bathroom or on my couch. And I said to him, I know that this might not make sense to you, but the brand I'm building is about authenticity and realness. And therefore, I need to show up as every version of myself, not just the polished version. And that didn't make sense to him. And when I decided to shut down my event planning business and launch Soma Soma, and instead of going full force into selling, I took my foot off the gas and said, you know what? I don't actually fully know what I want to do here. So I'm going to spend some time really digging into it. I'm not going to take on any clients. I'm going to figure it out. When I decided to launch this podcast with less than 1,000 followers on Instagram and say, you know what? This feels aligned for me, even though I don't necessarily have the audience. Constantly making decisions that from the outside don't necessarily make sense. And recently I went to a business summit for female entrepreneurs, and I was in a room with 1,000 women who were boldly claiming a big, beautiful, wild, and unreasonable life for themselves. And I finally felt like I had found my people who were making moves that make absolutely no sense in the traditional archetype and the traditional structure of the success that we see these days, and still crushing it, bringing in millions, tens of millions of dollars in a business that doesn't have the structures that you were told you have to have in order to succeed. And being in that room with these women was such a beautiful, beautiful permission slip to say, listen to yourself. Trust that you know best, even if you do not make sense to those outside you. Because I read this quote, and I can't remember where it was from, but crazy is often just being right first. And for those of us who want to go big and create unreasonable moves in our lives, then we are going to have to make decisions and sit in the discomfort of those decisions not making sense to other people. That is how you change the game. Because when I stopped trying to explain myself, over-explain myself to everyone in my life, what I was doing, where I was going, how I was doing it in order to feel safe in the validation that they're like, yep, cool, that sounds good, keep going. And I just started making moves without asking any permission. That's when things really started flowing in my life. And don't get me wrong, many fears have come up when I imagine doing things that others won't understand, especially the people closest to me in my life. It's not easy to not make sense to other people because people will project onto you the fact that you are doing something that makes no sense. And you have to sit so deeply in your belief and trust in yourself that you are willing to break the mold, to take a different path than what you see has worked before. Because you see, what I saw worked before is that success equals struggle. That if I'm not struggling, then I won't be successful. And that thought exhausted me. It made me want to pack up and go to the woods and live off grid and not have to deal with chasing my dream ever. But when I shifted that and thought, but what if I don't have to hustle and it can be even easier to double, triple, quadruple my income? What if I don't have to show up every single day at my computer until my eyes are bleeding from dryness? What if I don't have to say yes to jobs that I'm like, I don't want to? That sounds miserable. And that started feeling really, really good in my body. But it did require me to stay very grounded in my truth when I felt like others were questioning my choices. And this has been such a powerful unlock for me to be able to say, kindly, I totally see why me showing up in this way or me making this decision doesn't make sense to you. I was there once, or I can see why, based on what you know about this subject, that it doesn't make sense to you. But I know what I am doing as I build this personal brand of mine is very well thought through. I am smart. I am capable. Please just trust me. And the more and more that I did that, instead of defaulting to over explaining and trying to get someone on my side, instead just saying, I totally understand where you're coming from. And that's okay. I really trust myself, so I'm going to keep going down this road. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. It was this amazing message to myself to keep trusting myself. And that's like a feedback loop. You tell someone out loud that you deeply trust yourself, that self-trust multiplies. And then the energy that you're putting out into the world is going to bring back in the things that you want. So I have a question for you. What is something that you would love to do, but you have been talking yourself out of because it doesn't make sense? It doesn't make sense to end a perfectly fine relationship to go out there and find the person that sets my world on fire. It doesn't make sense to leave this stable job to go all in on my passion project. It doesn't make sense to move to this new city. Where is somewhere that you are keeping yourself small and not making the moves that you know in your heart are right because you are afraid of not making sense to others? Because I want to give you permission right here, right now, to not make any fucking sense to anyone but yourself. Because all those things that you desire in life, which are invitations from your future self into the life that you are meant to live, need to be realized. And they are not going to be realized if you keep playing it small and playing by the rules and making sure that every move you make is collectively agreed upon by your community around you. So I'd love to do a little exercise with you that I think might help you understand why it is so important to become comfortable with not making sense. Because that is the only way that you are going to get to the future self that you so deeply desire. And so I'm going to take you through a little guided meditation of you in a year so that you can connect so deeply, so powerfully to the feelings and emotions of that version of yourself, that making decisions that freak other people out won't even bother you because you are so determined to get to that future version of yourself. So I'm going to invite you, if you're not already, to get seated in a comfortable position or perhaps lay down if that's calling to you. Bring your eyes to a close if you can. And take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out your mouth. Again, breathing deep into the belly, then filling up the chest, holding briefly at the top, and then letting all the air out on that exhale and any tension that needs to go with it. Settling into a comfortable breath pattern now. I want you to imagine a path ahead of you. And at the end of that path is a door. And as you make your way along this path, you feel the crunch of gravel beneath your feet. You can hear it with each step that you take. You can feel the air against your skin. Hear the sounds of nature around you. And as you come up to the door at the end of that path, you reach out, grab the handle, and turn it. You open the door, and before you is you, staring back at you with a smile. It's you a year in the future. And I want you to take in every detail about the future you. What are you wearing? How do the clothes sit on your body? Take in the features of your face. What room are you in? What does it look like? What does it smell like? Are you surrounded by loved ones? Are you alone? Perhaps you're standing on a stage. Perhaps you're creating art. I want you to take in every detail of how the future you is moving throughout this room. What are the signs and movements of your body communicating? How are you holding yourself? I'm inviting you to tune into every one of your senses and gather all the information that you can about this future version of you. Imprint the scent, the sounds, the emotions that you are seeing. I want this to feel so real that it's as if you are there right now. It's as if you and that future version of you is merging together as one. And you begin to embody everything that you have just witnessed in this future version. You can feel the clothes on your skin. You can hear the sounds that they are hearing. And most importantly, you can feel the emotions that they have coursing through their body. Are they feeling peace, presence, joy, freedom, exhilaration? I invite you to bring whatever feeling is going through your body into your heart center as if it is happening to you right now. We are not waiting for a year into your future for you to feel like this. I want you to feel like this right now. Bring the emotion into your facial expressions and let it course through your center. Because this future version of you is you. Simply on a different timeline. Everything that you see for them, everything you imagine to be surrounding them in that room, all the opportunities, the people, the love, that exists for you too. But in order to get there, in order to jump to that timeline, you are going to have to start living in true alignment. You are going to have to start making decisions from a place of deep knowing and truth within yourself, even when that truth, that knowing, can't be explained for other people's understanding. I'm inviting you right here, right now, to give yourself permission to not make sense to anyone but that future version of you. Because they know that every decision you make between now and then is exactly what is supposed to happen. And as you take some deep breaths in, I want you to seal in that feeling. Seal in that future version of you so that you can come back to it any time when doubt arises, when the fear of not making sense creeps in. You can come back to the embodiment of your own future and know that you are making perfect sense to yourself. And as you retreat back through the door, let your future self know that you'll see them soon. Close that door and walk back down through the path. As you come back into the present moment, wiggling your fingers and toes, coming back into the here and now, taking a final deep breath in, letting go, and feeling excited about how little sense your next moves are going to make. Thank you for joining me on that little journey. And I've left some resources in the description of this episode, which I think might help you continue to move with the fear that comes up with not making sense to others, and will allow you to stand in the full embodiment of continuing to make unreasonable moves. Until next time.